Whenever you face a difficult person in your life, I want you to remember this, that we are all one consciousness, experiencing itself through an infinite array of different forms, which means that that difficult person is God in disguise, coming to help guide you on your journey. You see, but when we are stuck in the illusion of separation, we are trapped in this little world of doom. We see things from like this tiny keyhole in which all of reality is being filtered out. And we hyper-focus on only, well, how is this person affecting me? How is this situation troubling me? And that is what it's like to live in ego. You see, we are all one, which means that our environment, the people in our life, everything is but an extension of us. Imagine if you saw a field of mushrooms. On the surface you could say, oh well, look, there's these individual mushrooms, let me go pick them. But in truth, there is only one underlying mycelium that is everlasting. The mushrooms come and go, but the mycelium never dies. And we are connected through this divine intelligence. And so if you get triggered by people, if you're in a relationship and you keep arguing all the time, or you keep struggling with that person, know that it is not you and them. It is the one collective consciousness evolving and communicating with itself. Which means that you two people are the exact energetic match that is needed in order for the highest evolution of both parties. Because the collective consciousness is always in an upward trajectory of growth and evolution. It's not dying or becoming less intelligent. When I started looking at life this way, you can't get triggered the same. Because if you know it's God communicating with you, you don't see it as taking things personal. You see, I developed a mindset in which you can always come out on top, no matter what happens to you. Hyper-focusing on all the ways that all of our experiences, whether bad or good, all of our thoughts, negative or positive, how everything in our life can be used for our highest spiritual growth. And the funny thing is, it doesn't even matter if it's true. I mean, I see that it is true, but sometimes your beliefs are more important than facts, because your beliefs shape the way you see the world. And we can have any beliefs that we want. So when we look at our life, we can see the things that are bringing us down, our beliefs about other people, the story that we tell ourselves. And if you are a true seeker of truth, you must come to the realization that this story is imaginary, because our entire world is filtered through this tiny little lens. And the world is big and we are small. And to think that we have come to the truth, the absolute truth, the final truth, is arrogance. To believe that we know somebody else, and to say with certainty, yes, this is who that person is. They will never change. They will always be that way. That is a false judgment. And that is exactly what is keeping you, or keeping anybody, in conflict in relationships. Because when you go and talk to somebody, let's say me and you are having a conversation, and you approach me after seeing all of these videos. You have this idea of who I am in your mind. And so every thought, every word that you speak is going to get filtered through this idea. And you are going to project onto me an image that is not true. And it's not your fault. This is what everybody does. But you see, my job as a spiritual leader, let's say, is to approach the situation from a place of emptiness, to not have any judgment whether you're a good or bad person, whether I like you or not, whether or not we have the same vibes. Because if I can speak to you without projecting anything, then I can act as a mirror, as a reflection of yourself, in which you can see yourself through me. And in doing so, you can become more self-aware and more easily grow spiritually. But think about how most of us spend our relationships. Both parties have a certain idea of the other person. And so we're always projecting our ideas onto each other. And it creates a whole big mess. And then we question why people treat us a certain way, or why people do things that seem to betray us. And because we look at it from this small ego perspective, we do not see the ways that we push them towards those actions. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm blaming you for the bad things that happen or for the way that other people treat you. But we have to understand that life is happening from us. This is the idea of karma, in which we have a certain set of patterns that are being projected onto the world and influencing our reality. And then those consequences of those patterns, the ripple effects, eventually they make their way back to us. And so when we interact with another person, we are influencing them, and we are causing them to behave in certain ways. I'll give you a simple example. If you don't have very good communication with somebody, and when you approach them and you expect problems because you've been here before, perhaps you've been having the same conversations for 2 decades, never getting anywhere, always the same problem. Whenever you go into that situation with this idea in your head, this story, the moment that person begins showing some of that behavior that you've been expecting, immediately you get triggered and everything unravels. Meaning, if I expect you to behave in a certain way, the moment you begin behaving in that way, I get set off. And I say, look, yep, you are this way, and now I am having to deal with you. But we don't realize that it is those expectations in which we are co-creating our unfavorable reality with that other person. Because we expect them to behave in a certain way, we project a certain identity onto them, and so they will fulfill that role. And so the key is to approach every interaction with somebody from a place of emptiness, from a place of really no identity, no expectations, no assumptions. I mean, I guess you could assume that things will go good, but if you remain empty and you don't think anything of it, you will find that all of your relationships will be much more harmonious, because the egos of other people won't have anything to feed off of. And so there cannot be conflict. And while they are living in their own little worlds, you are simply communicating with God. The moment you realize this, you become unstoppable, because you realize that there are no difficult people in this life, and that everybody is playing their role exactly as they should. And maybe it can sound cruel that I don't really pay no mind to the individual person, that the person they believe themselves to be is for the most part irrelevant, but that it is always God acting through everybody, no matter how strong your ego is or no matter how enlightened you are. It's just, from what perspective are you experiencing life? So you never have to think, this person did this thing to me, or I didn't get this job, or I didn't get what I want, or things didn't go as planned, because you are in the hands of God at all times. And so everything that happens is always happening for your highest spiritual growth. Now, sometimes if we are attached to our ego or to the mind, life sometimes drags us kicking and screaming through difficult experiences. But we have to understand that one life is not as important as the infinite journey that the soul takes. We look at suffering and pain, and we think, how could this be? How could God allow all of this suffering, all of these difficult experiences? And well, the soul is not so much concerned with the well-being of an individual person, this temporary incarnation that we've taken on, these temporary clothes that we wear. The soul thinks, well, I don't care if it gets dirty, because at the end of the day, I'll just take it off. Keep your focus oriented on God, and all of your troubles and all of your fears and all of your problems will go away. Because how can you have any problem in the presence of God?